You can't spell leadership without the word ladies, especially when it comes to animal rescues across the low country. And our next guest, in all the years that she has been saving lives and helping animals, it's estimated she has saved more than 50,000 lives. Our next guest is Carol Linville of Pet Helpers.
This is Charleston Women Podcast, where you can meet like-minded, strong, independent, professional, and inspiring local women. This is Charleston Women Podcast.
Our next guest now is the one and only Carol Linville. She is president and founder of Pet Helpers, and she joins us now to tell us about everything she's done over the last, what is it, Carol, 43 years since you formed Pet Helpers?
43 years. It's been an amazing walk, and it was never any goal of mine to become an animal welfare startup organization or even speak to the issues. But living here and seeing the situation back in the 70s, reading an article, as many know, and hearing how bad it was in the community, I just started a Pet of the Week column, and that very innocuous little 10-minute amount of time when Bob and I were struggling in a new business, trying to encourage people to adopt from the local shelter in North Charleston, was the seed. And from there, you just started seeing more and more and challenging things that weren't in place. And there was no animal control ordinances. There was no animal welfare. There was no anything. And one thing led to another, and I just started speaking out. And quite honestly, I learned early on that the media, like yourself and others, you were the voice. I needed to get the information out there, and you all were the voice that helped make the difference to the community. Absolutely. And here we are today.
Here we are today. You know, I've worked in this community a long time, and I feel like you can't speak about animal rescues without your name coming up. You are a fixture in this community. And I didn't know that it started from an article, Pet of the Week. Did you have any idea? You said when you started that, you didn't know that you were going down the path of forming a nonprofit, right?
Oh my gosh, it was an article in the Post-Courier newspaper about 95% of all animals killed in every 3 days, and it was just horrific back then. And little did I know, and Charlie Diggle, James Island Journal, I went and cold turkey just said, hey, would you do a story, a pet picture if I got someone to take it? Back then you had to have them, printed at the local photography shop. And that's how it started. But to your point, there was just so many issues that weren't being addressed, and it just became a one-by-one legislation, ordinances, animal cruelty, and people just said you can't make change. But I said, don't use the word can't with me. You just draw the line in the sand if you tell me I can't. So it's God's work. I mean, why me? I don't know, but I was the voice, and I just kept moving on and challenging the status quo and making change when people said you couldn't, and you can.
Right. So take me back. So you guys are on Folly Road now. We have a lot of new people to Charleston listening to this podcast who might not have stopped by Pet Helpers, but you're right there on Folly Road. Has that been your location the entire time? Take me back to day one when you opened the doors and said, we are Pet Helpers.
Day one started in our home and in our business at Linville Car Center on Folly Road. And by 1981 or 82, we were getting 2,000 calls a year into the business and home. Are you that animal lady on James Island? Are you that cat lady back then? And by then we had I remember 17 cats in our business office and an empty office, setting off the alarm at 2 and 3 in the morning. Bob saying, you get up and go down there and meet the sheriff's department. I mean, that was the beginning back in the early 80s. We then built 3 rooms in our back shop space. Bob did it all, created the first Pet Helpers facility there. And we were there for 10 years, adopted over 2,000 animals, mostly cats back then. And we're taking up to 92, found the house and garage across the street from where we are today. 16 years there, adding, building, expanding, adopted thousands more. Couldn't have a sign out, had the yellow mailbox. Everybody knew Pet Helpers with a yellow mailbox. And because we were technically residential. Quick story, I go to Charleston County, tried to get a rezone to put a sign out. They wanted to know where I was. They said, you're residential, you can't be, are you there now? I said, well, we've sort of been there a while. And I could read right then and there, this was not going to happen. So I said, will you refund my $150 and I'll pretend I never came before you to ask for a zoning variance? And they did.
Wow.
And we stayed with the yellow mailbox until we began the fundraising effort in 1998, 10 years to raise funds to build where we are today, a $4 million facility we still owe $1.5 million. So I share with everyone donations and financial support is critical because we're still paying for the house.
Wow.
But here we are.
And
So
you said the
that's a
doors
long-
on that opened in 1998. Is that correct?
1998 is when we started raising money to buy and build where we are today at 1447 Folly Road.
Okay.
That is what I say to everyone, the real shelter, the real big shelter.
Right.
But prior to that, we were in the house in a 3-bay garage for 16 years. The gray house with the yellow mailbox across the street, but always based on James Allen.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of challenges, Erin, along the way to get to where we are today.
Yep.
But here we are.
This is Charleston Pet Podcast exclusively for our four-legged friends in the Low Country. Our guests will be enriching the lives of our dog and cat family members with helpful information for your furry friends. The Charleston Pet Podcast is brought to you by Mount Pleasant Pets.
For more information about Mount Pleasant Pet Magazine or Charleston Pet Podcast, contact Bill Maschio at 843-530-0403 or publisher at mountpleasantmagazine.com.
You're listening to the Charleston Women Podcast.
How many employees do you have there right now in your $4 million facility? What have you become now?
We become 27
Employees
to
and
30.
volunteers, I should say, because you run so many operations on volunteers.
Oh my gosh, we have probably over 100 volunteers, but we do have 27 to 30 full-time and part-time employees. Mm-hmm. So it's $150,000 a month to operate the shelter. We're open 7 days a week. We're there for anyone that needs help with their animal. Try to give advice. Can we take every single animal in it every single moment? No, but we're there to give a hand up and help where we can, and also challenge anything that's being neglected or abused.
Right.
And focusing on Folly Beach. We've been partnered with Folly Beach for 35 years. Mm-hmm. I do all the Folly Beach work out there. The wildlife has been a huge issue the last 2 years.
Well, that was my next question. I know that I have delivered you baby squirrels from my own front yard when they cut down a tree. You take in all kinds of things. You know, what are some, we typically think of cats and dogs, but you said wildlife. What are the other creatures, if you will, that you're helping save?
The other creatures are basically through what I call Linville land at home. So Linville land can be squirrels, can be raccoons. I've rescued off Folly Beach. I'm on call to the police department, volunteer pro bono, which has gotten far beyond where I'm supposed to be backing up, not being the primary go-to. But pelicans, seagulls, seabirds, loons, sick raccoons, baby squirrels, orphan baby raccoons, you name it. I've been out there and rescued it. For the city at 2 a.m, mm-hmm. at 10 a.m, and believe me, it's a challenge now because at the time there's a whole lot more wildlife that have been impacted with COVID, with development, with habitat destruction. So we're seeing a lot more critical need for help in that area.
That's a good point. You know, Carol, I want to talk about your passion because you're not, for lack of a better word, you're not a normal human being because most of us could not do what you do. I'm serious. The sheer number of animals that you've rescued, the passion, the heart that it takes to do what you do. Have you always had that drive and love for animals ever since you were a little girl? I mean, was it something that's built within you or it was always kind of burning inside?
I would say built with me. Compassion and empathy has always been a component. I've always been a caretaker, a fixer. Mm-hmm. Help anybody fix anything. It's an inherent, I guess, God's walk in this life is what I say. I'm God's worker bee for animals and people. And if I can help you fix something in your life, be it human or animal, I just can't not if I can make a difference. And it's always been there from my very first job, going back to Fort Lauderdale and working for the Broward County Commission and helping the county commissioner service all, take care of all the people. But back then I just had a cat, a dog, and a horse. I had a normal life. I didn't know anything about animal welfare until I moved to Charleston, following Bob, the love of my life, as you know. Mm-hmm. And he's been a huge component of all of these 45 years. So it's been very hard losing him almost 3 years now, which is impossible to believe. But without him, I wouldn't have been able to do what I've done for the community and for the animals because and I'm not going to say he was happy every day with it. Trust me, because this is a man that...
Some things you brought home that he wasn't keen on, maybe. I'm just guessing.
It's been a while.
2 number questions for you. First of all, do you have any estimate as to how many animals you have saved in your 40 plus years? Do you have any idea?
I throw 50,000 out, but that's through the shelter. Through personal, I mean, at home and on my personal handling, I'm sure 400 or 500. But, that's kind of a stretch on numbers. I've been helping the wildlife component's been huge. The raccoons, I mean, I know that's a whole other side thing, but I've raised over 30 baby raccoons, and Bob Linville has lived with baby raccoons in the house, 2 or 3 at a time, or one. We have some wild stories there. We traveled with one back and forth to Florida in 2015 that I was raising. My mom was dying. If the Marriott knew the baby raccoon that was in and out on our trip going and coming, I've gotten very good at sneaking a little baby in with luggage. So there's a lot of stories. But
my next number question for you is, how many animals do you have living with you right now? Because every time I see you, that number fluctuates, but I'm always in shock as to what's going on at the Linville household.
I'm embarrassed to say, but at the same time, it's a fact. I have 23 at home right now. I have 16 cats. All have stories from ages 2 to 18. 2 dogs, normal. 3 baby raccoons that I'm almost getting off a bottle, that are 3.5 months old, that don't want to give up their bottle, that were rescued on Folly as orphan babies. Mothers were killed. Rambo, a 14-month adult raccoon, neutered, fixed, and all of that, lives full-time with the 16 cats and the 2 dogs. Now, the cats are not all in one area. I have my closed-in back porch, the garage, the overhead room.
Right.
So workload every day is huge. At least 4 to 5 hours a day on top of business work and pet helpers and rental property that helps me live.
Yeah.
So, but right now, but the numbers should drop back to 19 when the baby raccoons go off to the sanctuary.
Which is much more reasonable, right?
Oh my God, yes. Oh my God, yes. They're cute as heck. They're very cute, but I'm ready for them to go on to their next stage of life.
Let's talk about, you have done so much, but the Low Country does have a large number of homeless animals, right? Ever since I've moved here, I feel like it's constantly an issue. There's how many rescues do we have in our area? Because you guys work well together. That's kind of my point. How if you can't take something in, it's referred to someone else. Like, as a community, I think you all do a great job.
We absolutely. The Animal Society is doing a much larger job and a much greater scope. Pet Helpers has its place, and then we have the individual rescues and the Berkeley, Dorchester, and your different county. And we work well, all of us together. We're pulling right now when we have space from Collington County, from not Orangeburg, I think, but Berkeley and Dorchester as needed. A few animals here and there. We're all trying to keep space filled and yet still be able to take whatever comes in the front door. I think my biggest challenge is for people to understand commitment. It's not just a word. Commitment is lifetime commitment through the good and the bad. Kind of like a marriage. I'd like to put a gold ring on everybody that adopts an animal and say, this is for 15 years. So you're committed to this relationship. And that's part of the problem, along with spaying and neutering, which we all know is you stop the problem at the source. Cats are much greater issue than dogs. We're pretty well doing good with our dog adoptions, and puppies are adopting. But of course they grow up, so it's the residual come back that you don't want.
Right.
Once they get past. So it's a constant battle, a constant education, a constant. You all have done a phenomenal job in helping save so many lives, Erin. Without you, we couldn't do what we do.
Makes my heart swell, that we can play a small part in it by highlighting these animals. How else can the community help? I ask you guys this all the time, but I know we can donate, we can volunteer. Don't you have like an Amazon wish list, perhaps, that we can purchase things? It's $150,000 a month to run your business. What can we do?
That's what keeps me awake at night. All these years I've worked so hard, and we work now to put money aside to build for the future. Everything that Bob and I have worked for, a good majority of that, I'm planning to benefit pet helpers down the road, hope a little further down the road, but, along with current. But, planning and people planning for their own pets, talking about down the road. I mean, make plans for your animals. Hurricane evacuation, don't leave them. Jumping into what can people do, be responsible and understand that they're as important to you and should be cared for equally as if you got to go, they got to go.
Right.
You die, have plans for your animals.
Mm-hmm.
Educate people, and if you see something, say something. If you see an animal being neglected, call someone, and be a squeaky wheel. Don't just say I made a call and let it go. That's how you can make, one starfish at a time. For each one, you can say that.
One starfish at a time. Do you feel like you've seen a difference from when you first started, that things are improving, or because we have so many more people moving in, is it not? Are you not seeing a change in the numbers?
Oh, no. There's a huge improvement.
Okay.
Huge. In the 43 years, it's light and day and night to the good. So people are far more educated today about microchipping their pets, about and spaying and neutering. So compared to where it was back then, it was like you were speaking a foreign language. So no, we're doing great as a community, and Charleston is doing phenomenal as an no-kill lead community for the state and expanding out with that message. We need veterinarians. Erin, the biggest challenge, my biggest stress within Pet Helpers organization is hiring and finding a second veterinarian, and they are in critical shortage throughout the state and the country, and a shelter vet especially. So that's becoming the biggest challenge. We have the ability to spay and neuter low cost and help people get their animals done, but we need veterinarians. We need another veterinarian. And we've been looking a year and a half.
Wow.
So if one's listening out there that's semi-retired, wants to
share this podcast, and who knows who's listening or who wants to move to Charleston, right? We're a great place to live.
With what's going on throughout the country today, there's opportunity, and you need the mission in the heart, though. I want someone with passion and heart.
Right.
That's
Caroline,
what drives me.
I want to ask you, this is a weird question, but how many hours do you sleep a night? Because I just feel like there aren't enough hours in the day for you to accomplish everything that you do, to take care of the 20 plus animals at your house. Like, what's it like at your household? When do you wake up to get your day started? You're shaking your head.
I don't sleep. I get to bed at 1 or 2. This morning it was 3:45. Mm-hmm. I dozed off for an hour and a half, woke up, was awake for an hour and a half, sleep at 4, back up, awake at 7:30. I average 4 to 5 hours a night, and never together. I call it cat nap 1 and longer cat nap 2. It's awful. Obviously, as we get a little older or gain a few more years, we're supposed to get sleep, but that has just not been the case for a lot of years. So there's just too much. And I do have the personal business component of our life, and that we have some rental property. As I said earlier, that's how I live. So I'm responsible for all of that. And then I'm called to Folly. Folly Beach has really kept me busy the last 9 months. They don't have an animal service officer right now, and this is a huge issue for me, but I'm there for the public safety department. And if they call me, I'm going no matter what.
Absolutely.
So,
well, we thank you for everything you do for the Low Country, all the hard work you're doing for Folly Beach right now. I have to ask, what's next? You mentioned briefly that this is a time when you should be like stepping back a little bit, maybe relaxing, and it doesn't seem like you're headed in that direction. What's next for you?
The same. I'm not. It's not going to change. I will work until I can't not. And believe me, this has been an issue with family, even for Bob the last couple of years before I lost him. And I said, I can't not. If you're standing there with something that I can help you with, I can't not do it. Right. And so I don't think I ever will be able to do that. So I just pray to God every day. He gives me strength and energy and support and community awareness and help. And I will keep trucking as long as I can. And the good Lord keeps me going.
Well, you keep on trucking. And before we go, I want you to tell our listeners about your biggest fundraiser of the year. It's back, the Furball. What's the date? It's a great chance for us to help you just by purchasing a ticket, making a donation, buying an auction item. What are the details on that this year?
November 6th, Saturday night. We've got the Marriott again, open bar, plated dinner, dancing, music, live and silent auctions. You and Tom have both been involved with that for so many years. Limited tickets this year, 160. More than half are already pre-sold. So we do expect a total sellout. It's $200, but it's for a phenomenal 4 to 5 hour evening. The auction items and trips and jewelry are tremendous. You know that. I think I bought your shoes off your feet one year.
I feel like you might have. Did you? Something.
I think I did. Or you
all for the animals, Carol.
You did. I talked you out of your shoes. You were amazing.
You're very persuasive. I love talking to you. I love talking to you. I could talk to you all day. For the listeners at home, I want you to give your website so they can know where they can find more information. Of course, they can follow you on social media as well.
PetHelpers.org, 1447 Folly Road, James Island. Open 7 days a week. Call us, come by, visit, go online, check us out. We've got our food bank. We've got so many programs going to help the community, and we will always be here. And thanks to you, it's going to help us keep going.
Absolutely.
And thank you. Just adopt and donate and come down and volunteer also.
Carol, it has been so good to talk to you. You truly are a shining star in our community for the last 40 plus years. And we can't wait to see how many more lives you and Pet Helpers continue to save with your hard work.
Erin, thank you so much.
All right. Absolutely. That has been Carol Linville of Pet Helpers on the Charleston Women Podcast.
Thanks for spending time with Charleston Women Podcast. Please like us and follow us on whatever platform you're using to access Charleston Women Podcast.